Hello, everyone. Kim Kaiser here, and today I'm streaming to YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn all at once on StreamYard here. And I want to come in today and talk about something that I've actually wanted to talk about for a very long time. But the topic, given that I have a lot of people in personal development following me and reading my posts and watching my videos, it's a little bit of a dicey topic because I'm going to talk about like the real ROI of personal development, of healing modalities, of this sort of thing of like working on ourselves. Okay. And I'm gonna lay the context first. I have had so much benefit from the personal development industry. Like it changed my life at one point, but what I've noticed, it changed the trajectory of my life even, so much so that I became a coach and, like, really joined the industry. But, like, I keep seeing something that bothers me a lot, and it's that a lot of times people are seeking things from the personal development world. They have an incredible experience, much like I had in my first personal development event, probably, gosh, it's been like 20 years ago, I think. I had an incredible experience, this incredible expansion of who I was. And then what I see happening, just as a capsule here, and I'm going to go more into this as we go, is that people have a real upgrade or an expansion of who they are. And then instead of like taking that and like almost incorporating it into our life purpose, instead people hop back on the personal development bandwagon and get into never ending scenarios where they're trying to fix themselves, have the next insight, learn more, learn another modality, get into like an endless healing loop is a really big one that I see right now. And I just want to shed some light on this today because again, it's like a lucrative industry to be in a lot of ways. And I'm all for personal development, but I want to talk about to me where I've seen the real ROI is for people and where it's not. And again, I sort of risk probably a lot of criticism for talking about this as openly and like, yeah, clearly as I'm going to do today. So if you're here, if you're interested in this topic, I would love it if you'd comment. The comments and the likes absolutely help people find these videos. The algorithms on the different platforms respond to likes and comments, and so it just helps other people find it, especially if you like this content. You could also tag people in the comments of if you know someone who might really benefit from this live. So I'm going to dive in. So I'm going to go into the where I see the biggest ROI in two areas. So I'm going to talk about the timing, kind of where these advancements are like really valuable, and then I'm going to go into sort of like where people are pointing. Okay, to know where there's the ROI, where there's the biggest ROI that I've seen. Again, I've been deeply involved in the personal development industry through mostly business coaching, but yeah. Oh, good. Thank you, Hannah. Got yeah, the truth. Catch up later. Fantastic. Um, so deeply involved myself. So I'm speaking as a consumer of a lot of personal development, a lot of personal development, a lot of coaching. Okay, some incredible, and then sometimes just like really overdoing it. Just being honest, kind of finding my way, then losing my way, and then finding my way again. Okay, so I'm going to go into all this. I'm going to talk about both these things. So I wanted to talk about timing first, because I do think there's an incredible amount of return on investment when a person first dives into many modalities of personal development, whether it be, again, like we're talking about coaching, seminars, business coaching, any of that sort of thing. And there's a bit of a paradox I'm talking here because I have clients in my business coaching practice, in my coaching practice, that are very long term clients. Um, And but this is about where I'm pointing them. So I'm going to kind of come back to this later, because here I'm saying, like, I have really long-term clients, but on some level I'm about to tell you where I think the most valuable insights are. So to me, the most valuable insights and what kind of brings people into the personal development world, um, it's at the beginning. It's when we have sort of this like epiphany, when we're at a some sort of workshop or seminar, or we're reading an incredible book, or maybe we're being coached for the first time. And like, coaches are so incredibly talented at like kind of taking the cover, like the blindfold off people. And a lot of times we'll see something incredibly self-revealing, things that we can't actually see on our own. And so the timing is really important. So there's so much sort of, in my mind, front loaded ROI in the personal development world. A lot of times what happens is people like get this massive epiphany, and then they think, "Ooh, doing more of this will be a lot better." Okay? And sometimes that's true, but a lot of times, actually, that initial insight, that initial revelation, that initial epiphany is where so much of the value is loaded, right? And actually, a lot of times, doing more doesn't actually clarify things for people. It confuses them. And especially depending on my second point that I'm going into, sort of where the person's pointing. Okay. So this has happened to me a lot of times, where I've gotten a lot out of working with like a coach, or attending some courses, or that sort of thing. But like, what I noticed over the years, after sort of like being in sometimes myself, again, being just honest here, an unending cycle of always trying to work on myself and develop myself and that sort of thing. Like, what I've noticed a lot of times, not always, but the initial insight is where the huge amount of value is. Okay. And again, that's a little bit weird for me to be saying. It's a bit of a paradox, because I have very long-term clients, but I'm going to kind of clarify that in this second point. So sometimes we can just, what I'm really saying here is, sometimes we can stick with something for too long. Sometimes we actually have the most clarity when we wake up. And it takes a little bit then to sort of like integrate that waking up. But it's something that, if we stay in it too long, we can almost confuse ourselves. Okay, so I just like, that's the first piece, is the timing. Okay, the second piece is around where the person or the modality is kind of pointing for the answers. And to me, this is incredibly important, because again, the return on investment, there is a return on investment, what I've seen for any sort of personal development work. It's there for sure. I've gotten, again, this work has changed my life so many times, so many ways. But where a person's pointing, for the answers for you, okay, is really highly, highly important. And this is the piece where I feel like I can sort of um, stand in the paradox of having very long-term clients, but it's because of where I'm pointing people. Okay. So like, one thing, especially in healing, is that people will point towards a technique for sort of the healing, or the answer, the solution, right? Um, People will sometimes point towards a particular coach for the solution, for their methodology, really for their technique, if you will, or sort of their method and that sort of thing. And the problem with this is, like, ultimately, for you to continue developing on your path and purpose, that's removed from, like, when you count on a technique, when you count on a person, when you count on a particular modality, you have just sort of put something in between you and your highest potential that comes through the divine. Okay. Now, I know that's not a popular um, thing that I just said, because there are a lot of us sort of almost depending on someone else having the answer. But again, I've looked at this for a really long time, and sort of seen this phenomenon of people getting in like endless cycles of I think healing is the best sort of example of this. Like people will like find something in themselves that they feel needs to be healed. It could be a past trauma. It could be like all sorts of things that people want to heal. But trauma is a big topic right now, and they'll do some healing work with a person, with a practitioner, so to speak, and they'll have this incredible like healing that happens. Like they can feel it. It makes a difference in their life, and then they keep going back to the technique, right? They keep going back to the person who's providing that technique, and all of a sudden they don't see what's actually happened, which in my mind is that the person has actually healed themselves. They've sort of made this choice to be healed, right? But if they think it's the technique or the person that did it, then they're going to keep going back to the person, the technique, and then all of a sudden they've separated themselves from actually their decision, which was to heal themselves, right? And they can get stuck in endless healing cycles, endless. Because if we look for things to be healed, we will always find more. There's no like the way the universe works is what we are looking for, we will find. So if we're trying to find places where we need to be healed, we're going to really find them, right? So that's one thing there is kind of where is the person pointing for answers, right? Is it towards a technique, towards a person, that sort of thing? We're never going to long term find it there. It's always in here. It's always in the direct connect to the divine, to God. Okay. So if a person is pointing towards, or if you're pointing towards like developing your own willpower or your own discipline inside you, again, that's dicey territory because it's going to get no matter what we're trying to have willpower about, for most of us it's going to get harder and harder, right? It's going to feel a lot harder. Again, this is something that can be granted to us by the divine, but if we're using some sort of methodology or person or seminar or whatever that's designed um to up your willpower and discipline, it is limited and it's capable. You're going to have an initial hit, ROI, but the longer you try to use that, the less likely it is going to help you. Okay. Um, Also, I see people use like certain systems to develop themselves again, and I've had my own epiphanies based on systems or conceptual understandings, let's say, like really big epiphanies again. But like I was talking about with healing, is what's really happening inside those like systems or conceptual frameworks, let's say, is that we're making a decision between us and the divine that, like, ooh, this is showing me something, and it's a direct connect. But then, because there is a conceptual framework to fall back on, our thinking minds love that stuff. The ego loves to take that and go like, "Oh, got it. Let me learn more. Let me learn more." And then all of a sudden, again, the ROI diminishes. It starts going down, right? Belief systems are the same way. They're very much like conceptuals. Like it's belief systems are the same way. Like people can find incredible, like like this feeling of home, or this sort of what would you call it? Like this respite in belief systems, but they have a very much diminishing way. Like it's a diminishing ROI. And this is why, for me, inside my practice, why I sort of hold people sometimes in short term containers for sure, but also I also end up having longer term clients a lot of times, and it's because what I'm pointing people to is the truth of who they are. I'm going to say it how it occurs to me, in the eyes of God, like in their perfection. Like really, when someone sits down with me, I see perfection. And then I see human foibles, right? But in their truth, in the person's truth, I see perfection. I see, a child of God, if you will. I see a connection to the divine. But people lose that a lot of times, right? So if I sat down and saw people like in their thing they need to be healed, in that thing a lot of people just tell me, even though I do mostly kind of business coaching, people tell me all kinds of things about their lives. If I saw the person as that sort of event that happened to them or that damage that happened, then I'm like, I can't really help. Like, I can give them an initial epiphany, but if that's how I really see them, if I'm not pointing them to the fact that you have a direct connect to the divine, then my own usefulness wears out as a coach. But this is where a person is pointing matters. It's like I'm always pointing people towards, like, I even said to one of my clients the other day, what is God saying to you? And I said the person's name directly. Like, I don't want to guess. I don't know. What I know is where the answers are, right? Through here. But yeah. So this is where I think, again, I don't know that there's some big um what do you call that? Oh, conspiracy within the personal development world. I think a lot of people have been helped. But I think a lot of times people confuse, like they get the technique and they start to confuse the map for the territory. Like they start to think, oh, it's the technique or this person or this seminar that's the thing. And they forget that, like, no, it's your own divinity because you're made of something so perfect that allowed you to have that level of insight, that level of epiphany, that level of um, change, transformation in your life. Yeah, thank you, Courtney. I appreciate that. It's so needed because it's, again, people are spending, this is what I keep seeing, like people are kind of spiritually exhausted right now. Like anybody else, and again, I'm saying this as a person on the path, but also as a leader, that I've seen myself at times like get a whiff of something new and sort of chase a technique, but then always eventually come back to, like, no, like it's this peace inside of us. And so I just feel so clear on my own purpose right now as a coach, as a business coach, as someone who brings me someone, as a person who people bring a lot of things to in life, to go, we have to be very clear about where we're pointing, right? We have to be clear on where our own transformation came from and continues to come from the divine, and where we're pointing people, right? So that we don't just get put into this endless healing cycle, this endless, you know, taking in information and concepts so that the ego can like grind on that. Like the ego loves that stuff. There's a much more deeply embodied place to work from. There's a place where we can point people to where the answers are. And again, for me, people keep coming back to me for that. I think because it's so unusual to point there, to like, you actually have the answers, let me show you how. And then it ends up being a partnership where we're fellow travelers on the path because we like walking together, right? And that's a big piece. But I think, again, in the sort of coaching, spiritual communities, healing, that sort of thing, a lot of people are in lack, so they want to keep building things where people come back all the time based on need, because we're not really showing people where the actual transformation comes from. Okay, so just notice that in yourself. Notice where you think the transformation is coming from. Notice what you think is essential in your transformation, right? Like, just notice that for yourself. And do you have a clean relationship with what you're engaging with? Or are you doing something so that, like, out of need, out of scarcity, because you feel like you don't have what you need? And this is a place where, again, it's a little bit weird, me in the personal development industry saying this, but it's like there is this paradox when we set people free. Like, I know for me, when I set people free, and this sort of shift happened for me a couple years ago, where I stopped working from scarcity and really held people in their own knowing, in their own connection to where the answers actually come from. Like, it's a place that has changed my business. The looser I hold it, the less fear I have about whether people are going to need me or not need me, the more come my way, right? And so this is again, but this is where I'm pointing. This is where I'm pointing. And I haven't always pointed that way. So just being totally honest, I've had a lot of my own epiphanies in here to trying a lot of different things to sort of, yeah, to find my own way. Okay. And so that's what I just wanted to like get really clear. So ROI absolutely there, but you calculate it yourself. Go back and notice in your own personal development journey, where is the biggest change for you? Right? Notice a lot of times you're going to find it's where people are pointing you towards the source of answers, and a lot of times kind of more towards the beginning. May not need more. You may not need more. So I have loved being here with you all today. Thanks for all the hearts and loves. If you happen to catch the replay, absolutely let me know you were here. I always come in and check all the comments. I always appreciate all the comments. And I hope you have just enjoyed this. I hope there's been something, a little bit of something that has opened up for you as we've talked about this. I'll see you next time.